All right, welcome back to the Tank Me Later podcast, which is part of Fantasy Basketball International. This is episode 36, and for this episode, we're not going to talk much about fantasy basketball. We're going to talk about real basketball. And joining me is one of my good friends to talk about his journey as a D1 player and now trying to make it as a professional. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. And as I said, we're not going to talk much about fantasy. We're going to be just talking about real hoops. For this one, Spencer's going to join me. And I think it's an important perspective for anybody that's interested in fantasy basketball or just like, I guess, gambling really, to understand how things actually work as opposed to just reading box scores and seeing what you see on Twitter. Understanding the behind the scenes of it's important. I think it's more of an issue in football, seeing fans slide into Instagram DMs and, say things they wouldn't say to a player's face. And you see that all the time, people being very degrading to professional athletes, but I think it's important to see the human side of them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Spencer Rodgers, who I played with in high school, which is how I know him and I'm able to be connected with him to talk about this. Spencer, we're going to get into kind of your journey as a basketball player. But first, before we get into that, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here. Happy to see you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you hopping on with me. I know you had it's been pretty busy for you the past few months, which we'll get into at some point, trying to figure things out on the basketball side of it. But we can start at the beginning, if that's okay with you, just kind of walking through your journey, because I feel like that's actually probably what I know most of the details about is how you started, I guess, in high school. We both went to Mountain View High School in Lawrenceville, Georgia, played some, tough competition. A lot of times we'll talk about some of the players that I think more so you got to play against than I got to play against, but I was there on the team with a jersey for these games. So I tell people I played against them as well. But what was, I guess if we're starting really at the beginning, you're a 4-year varsity player. Tell me what that experience was like, I guess, being kind of entrusted as a starter coming in as a freshman in high school for a program with a first-year head coach and that was never good at all.
Right. It was a very interesting experience. I mean, coming in, 13, 14 years old, coming in from eighth grade, being a good player on the eighth grade team, but now you're going against seniors. They're 17, 18 years old, and they got more experience. And we took a lot of lumps when we were young. We had a lot of losing seasons. I can't even remember how many games we lost our first 2 years up there, but it was pretty bad. But just being there from a young age, it really helped all of us, all the people that, were varsity with us as freshmen, just helped us grow. And then part of those experiences helped us, win games once we got older, once we became juniors and seniors. So it really paid off.
Definitely. And you were able to help kind of turn the culture around for a slightly newer school that had never really won and win the region as a junior in a tough region. And I think I've told, I guess not told the story, but I kind of talked with some people where I've said like, yeah, like we played against a lot of Division I players. I mean, Devin Vassell, who just got paid 4 years, $146 million, was in our region playing him a couple times a year. And people were like, oh, like playing against him, like he must have been just significantly better than everybody else out there. Like clearly I'm like, well, I mean, like he was one of the best players, but there was talent just across that region. We were playing elite players every single game. So being able to take that culture and turning it into a region championship team, I guess, is there any sort of takeaways that you had from either your growth as a player or being able to operate as a team to go from it? Because I guess we'll get into it a little later, but you've done this twice now where you've kind of joined a team that had a really bad record and ended up winning your conference or your region. But what kind of things do you think you learned through that process?
Probably the biggest thing I learned is just, being faithful, trusting the process. I mean, when you're going into it, when you're losing so many games, it's hard to, see that light on the end of on the other side of the tunnel. And as a team, it's hard to stay connected and stay together when you're losing so many games. And when times is hard, you're getting beat up on every weekend, and you got to go to school the next day. And they ask you, "Did you win?" And like, "No, we lost. We were close in the first half though." But yeah, that used to be the story back in high school.
Yeah.
But um, what I learned from it was, yeah, just trust the process and keep working. Because eventually, you keep pounding that rock. Eventually, it's gonna break, and you'll see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, and I think you did because I was trying to fact check this before, but as far as we know, you're still the all-time three-point leader in Gwinnett County history, and that's, I mean, we can go through a list of players that have played in that county, like Lou Will, Devin Vassell. A number of players went to Norcross that were very good. Jeremy Lamb, Josh Okogie's playing in the NBA right now. Just a
A lot
lot,
of players.
yeah, a lot of NBA players, a lot of D1 players. All-time three-point leader right here. Um, but I guess everybody listening probably doesn't want to hear as much about details from high school basketball, 'cause everybody has that. But when you were going through the recruiting process, when you were in high school, more so I guess junior and senior year, getting offers, the ones I could find online were obviously Troy, where you ended up going, and then App State, FAU, and Georgia State. If I'm not mistaken, you got that Georgia State offer while we were playing at a camp at Georgia State. It was like right after the game they offered you on the spot. But what was that like? I guess being pursued by multiple D1 colleges that wanted you to come play for them.
I mean, it was a really great feeling. I mean, being a young kid that, all you wanted to do was just go D1. All you wanted to do was play, continue playing and play at the highest level. So when I started receiving interest, I want to say that, that junior year, it was really refreshing because, at times I was wondering if I would get this opportunity, but when it did, I was really grateful. And it's weird though. You start off wanting to, you want all these calls and all these coaches to contact you, but then as you get further along in the process, you start to get tired of it. You're doing something and you got a coach calling you, you got to stop. So it can be it's two sides to it, but I was really grateful to be able to get the looks and the opportunities that I had coming out of high school.
Yeah, and you ended up going to Troy in Alabama. What made you like? What did they kind of sell you on that made you say, "Okay, this is where I want to end up going for to start my college career"?
Yeah, well, I ended up going to Troy because I was looking to get out of Georgia, just to experience new things. But also their coach, they were the first people to offer me, so that kind of held a little precedent with me. And they had a senior that was a leading scorer, shooter. I could really see myself, stepping into that role, and that's what they sold me on, just coming in as a freshman, being able to step into that role. And what they tell you while they recruit you is a little bit different than what it actually is. But I was very grateful to be at Troy, and I'm very happy that I still chose to go to Troy.
Yeah, and I guess that's important because, well, I guess we'll get to that just in a second. You were only there for 1 year, but it's important that I guess you were still happy to be there your freshman year. A lot of growth obviously happens during your freshman year of college, especially for a Division I athlete. But you played, just looking at the numbers, played 22 games, 3 starts, 11.6 minutes per game, 3.1 points. So not as probably as much of a role as you were expecting. But what was that like playing that freshman season at Troy?
It was interesting. I mean, it was a team that came off. They were in the NCAA tournament the last year. That's also one of the reasons I wanted to go there. But you learned a lot just being so young and being around other good players, and it's really humbling, because everybody who comes out, everybody who ends up going to college and playing basketball, in high school they're the guys on their team, and then it's a huge adjustment, going from a starter to being a go-to guy to, you might not even play tonight, you might just be on the bench, and you still got to be positive. So that's what it was like for me at Troy. Just learning from the older guys and trying to gain some experience and get better as a freshman.
Yeah, and I guess that is probably a very different role from what you were used to. Even in high school, you were always a starter as well. So, like you said, everybody does that in high school. Then they go play D1, try and figure all that out. But then obviously that didn't, I guess, work out ideally. If I'm not mistaken, there was a change in coaching staff after that season, and
Yeah.
then you didn't return. Ended up at Southwest Mississippi Community College. What was, I guess, kind of the reason or what made you decide to leave Troy and end up at Southwest?
So it's funny. I really didn't decide to leave Troy. A lot of times I kind of want to talk about this. A lot of times you hear in the transfer portal, so and so is transferred, so and so is transferred, and then sometimes players get a lot of hate for leaving schools. But on the other side of that, a lot of times it's the coaches that actually tell these players to leave. It could be from various different reasons. Maybe it's a new coach coming in and they like, we won't have a spot for you this year, which is what happened to me. And or sometimes they'll just grow over the player and they'll just be like, we don't want you here anymore. So that's the other side of the transfer portal that a lot of people aren't really aware of. But the reason I left was because our new coach had came in, and basically said, you can stay here, but we won't have, you won't get any minutes. So basically, and within the next few days, I entered the transfer portal, and began getting calls from JUCO schools because back then you couldn't just transfer and play right away. You had to wait another year, and I really didn't want to do that. And I averaged 3 points the year before, so I decided, to take the JUCO route, and I ended up going to Southwest Mississippi because, just the relationship I was able to have with the coaches. My family is from Mississippi, so I was able to, spend more time with them, and they were just really, really big on, getting players in front of college coaches, and that's really what sold me to go there, and I'm happy I chose to go there.
Yeah. And so I guess I don't know if everybody else that was on the team was kind of in the same or going through the same process you were of transferring, I guess, down to JUCO to go try and find a new D1 school, or if there was different situations for everybody. But was there any sort of, I guess, frustration for you having been, a D1 athlete as a freshman, having offers coming out of high school, and to have to, like, I guess, quote unquote, like, go play JUCO for a year, because it probably does have a little bit more of a negative connotation for a Division I athlete to have to, play at JUCO the next season.
Um, I can say that, being in Southwest, being at JUCO was it was pretty tough. It's a pretty tough adjustment as far as, you know, when you're at a D1 school, you get the whole college life, it's parties, there's people on campus, fraternities, sororities, all that. You get everything. But in JUCO, you're most likely in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and there's not much to do. So, I mean, you could look at it one or two ways. You can be sad or, ungrateful for the fact that, you're here. You were just D1, now you're over here in Mississippi in middle of nowhere doing nothing. Or you can take advantage of it, no distractions, and you can just be in the gym. And I decided to be in the gym, and I think it really paid off, and it really helped, change my collegiate career, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess all that work ended up paying off enough for you to end up at Kennesaw State the next season, which was, I believe, Amir Abdurrahim, excuse me, was your coach there. This was coming off his first season. They were 1-28, and then you ended up going there the next season. What kind of sold you on KSU? Like, I guess also going back home, because you mentioned wanting to get out of Georgia, go to Alabama, experience new things, and then I guess it was kind of the right time for you to come home. Like, what all factored into that decision?
It was a lot. It was the coaching staff, they really sold me on, the possibility of building something special, making history and doing something that's never been done before. And you touched on it earlier. It was kind of the same situation in Mountain View, coming to a school where, they haven't really won ever, and then, trying to turn it into something else. So I guess that kind of drew me to it. And then the aspect of being back home, being around my family, being around my friends, my parents can come to every game, every home game. There's just a different experience, and yeah, I really enjoy being at Kennesaw State. The coaches, they really wanted to work with me. They all believed in me. So, it was a really good choice for me.
And then Coach Abdurrahim's brother Sharif played in the NBA as well. So coming from, I guess you could say, a lot of basketball pedigree with the family, what kind of things did you learn from him over your 3 years playing for him?
I learned a lot from him. I mean, every practice, every day, just being around him. He's such a charismatic and knowledgeable guy. But he taught me, just work hard, be present. And he really taught all of us how to be a team and how to sacrifice for one another for the greater good of the group. And he really built a lot of toughness in all of us, and he really helped me, become the player and person that I am now.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he's now at USF and is not the head coach there. So I guess taking a team from 1-28 to a conference championship over 4 years kind of lands you some pretty cool
Yeah.
opportunities. But your first season there, team went 5-19, but your stats were really good. Like, they were much more probably what you were expecting coming out of high school. 16.3 points, 3.6 boards, 2 assists, 1.1 steals, 2.6 threes. I mean, that was kind of your thing coming out of high school, was hitting threes.
Right.
And you had the opportunity to do that. What was that season like for you to, I guess, was there any sort of satisfaction from going to Troy where they kind of said, hey, we're not going to have a spot for you, to a JUCO school, and then seeing all that hard work kind of pay off, and first season back in Georgia, back in around your hometown, to have a season like that?
Yeah, it was really rewarding. Just because I was in JUCO, I felt overlooked. I felt like, my coaches at Troy, they didn't believe in me. I felt like, the people who didn't offer me when I was in JUCO, I feel like they didn't believe in me. So I kind of had a chip on my shoulder going into that season. And that was actually the COVID year. So we had a little bit more time to work out. So me and my dad was actually in the driveway pretty much every day just working out. So I had a lot of time to really prepare and work on my game. And, that kind of helped me going into the season. But it was a good season statistically for me, but it was a lot of long nights and long games going 5-19. But
For,
it built character. So
yeah, for sure. And having a season where you're averaging 16 points, hitting 2.5 threes per game, were you in contact with any either schools that wanted you to transfer into like a Power Five school, or even NBA or other professional teams that had any interest in you? Or was it just kind of, hey, I had this really good season, can't wait to run it back next year?
yeah, it was really more of since I didn't really enter the portal or anything, I really wasn't getting much contact from any other coaches. And I really wasn't considering transferring. I mean, I figured I had a great season here at Kennesaw. We're only going to get better. So I wanted to stay at Kennesaw and see everything through. And as far as the NBA contact at that point, there wasn't really much contact. Somebody would say, um, like sometimes coaches would come to the gym or scouts would come to the gym, and talk to me for a little bit. But other than that, it was really minimal contact. Since I didn't really declare for anything or enter the transfer portal.
Yeah. And so I guess, like we kind of were talking about earlier, you went into a team that slightly improved their record during your first season there, and then got close to 500 during your second season, 13-18, and then last season, right, 26-9, and won a region championship. But your role also kind of changed over the course of those 3 years, because you went from 16 points per game, playing 32 minutes per game. By this past season, just 6.5 points. Didn't start about half the games, 26 minutes per game. How did your role kind of change over your career at Kennesaw?
I kind of stepped more into a leadership role as I got older. It was a couple of us older guys on the team, and we really had to set the standard as far as coming to practice every day with the right attitude, the right mentality. And when you're seniors, all you want to do is win. So I was really just bought into winning, whatever it took. I didn't really care about the numbers. I just wanted to see it through because we had took so many losses. We figured it was about time we start winning some games and start get a ring, something like that. But it was an adjustment, going from 17 to 6 points a game. But I wouldn't change anything. So I mean, it was I don't know how to say it. I mean, it was all right. It was all right. It was fun.
I mean, you get a ring out of it. It's kind of hard to
Yeah,
complain about
the ring the
anything.
ring makes it a little bit better for sure.
Was that, I guess, kind of something you said all the seniors just kind of wanted to win? I guess, I don't know if that was conversations that you guys had, or if that was just kind of something internally where you said, all right, I'm going to just focus on making more winning plays. Or is it something like as a team, like, other players just became more of the scoring options, and you were, I guess, focusing more on being a leader and being a really good defender from what I saw? It seemed like, because not to make fun of you or trash on you or anything, but defense wasn't what you were known for in high school. But when I watched
Right.
this past season, it looked like you were, getting good defensive matchups as well, like being asked to guard some of the best players on the opposing team. Was that something that you really started priding yourself on, kind of what you did on the defensive end as well? Because I mean, that is what helps win games.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision. I mean, we had a really close knit team. All of us had came up through the ranks as far as, being there since, for a couple of years at least. But I just as far as defense, I just, I had to get better at defense. I had to lock in a little bit more on that side, and I wanted to be as valuable to my team as possible. And it wasn't in scoring this year. It was being a good defender, being a good player and making open shots and just doing whatever it took to win, guarding the best player, or, getting a rebound or whatever. I was just willing to do that. But our group was just so close and so committed to winning that none of us would bat an eye, taking less shots or, if one of us had a bad game, we were always connected. So we stayed close, and that's why we were able to find success.
Yeah, and the success did come with a region championship, or excuse me, conference championship. It's
Right.
conferences and colleges, but yeah, I know that. But what was that like? I guess kind of your second time really doing it, coming in with a team. And I've kind of asked this question like 3 times, but what did it mean to your team, to you, to be able to kind of finish out your college career on a high note with a conference championship?
It was a surreal moment. I mean, because in that moment, once you hear that buzzer go off, and you won the game, and you're conference champion, you just think of all the pain and all the early workouts and all the blowout losses and all the road trips or whatever that led up to this one exact moment, and it's overwhelming. Some of my teammates cried. I almost cried. But
You're too cool to cry.
yeah, I was about to. I was
They
close.
almost got you.
But yeah, it's just a real moment. It's really rewarding, because you know how much you put into it. So it really meant a lot, in its history. First Division 1 team to win the championship there. That can't be erased. So I'm just really grateful for that, to win that ring. To be immortalized, I guess, in Kennesaw and Georgia State basketball history.
Yeah, and then obviously that win led to being able to participate in March Madness. Was I guess what was the kind of the I don't remember exactly how quick of a turnaround, but it was a pretty quick turnaround from winning that championship game to actually playing in March Madness. What was it like? I guess Selection Sunday, being able to sit there with your team and just hearing your team's name announced, saying, "Hey, you're playing." Goodness, who did you guys play in that first round? I should have looked that up.
Xavier.
Xavier, right? Okay, so what was it like sitting with your team and getting announced to be able to play Xavier in that first round?
It was cool. We had a whole little event. We had some students, in the stands, filled it up a little bit, and had it on the big screen. But it was just crazy just seeing our team, on the big screen getting called out, and seeing our matchup because, you know, before that, people could never really imagine Kennesaw State being in this position. So just for us to be there on Selection Sunday, getting the media attention that we got, it was really great, and it was really fun, and it felt like some of our work was finally being noticed.
Yeah, and then you guys ended up playing a tough Xavier team. I remember watching that, and not to like be a fan real quick, but like watching you get fouled and them not calling it, and that
Yeah,
was ridiculous. But
yeah.
tell me about like what kind of that experience was like for you guys, like as a team to be able to travel and like knowing like, hey, like we're part of March Madness. Like, was this? I'm assuming that it was better like travel and like more things were given to you guys like throughout that process. I don't know if it was like a nicer travel, either like a plane or like a bus or whatever, nicer hotels, anything like that, leading up to that game.
Yeah, so we played in Greensboro. So if we ended up playing in some of the further locations like Denver or I think they played in Texas or something like that. But we ended up just riding a bus since we were
Okay.
so close. But we ended up getting an escort, to the highway from Kennesaw. They had the band bring us out, so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And then we got the escort to the gym on game day. Then as far as like the different things that you receive, like the food at the hotel was better than what we had before. We get a gift bag, we get March Madness gear to rock around the hotel and stuff like that. Everybody in the hotel was all Kennesaw State people. So it was like a whole community of just Kennesaw State. So it was just really fun, just being in that environment, being on a big stage, there was some nerves to it, but for the most part, we were really excited to, get to work. We wanted to upset Xavier. That was our goal. We wanted to make it to the Sweet 16 and just keep going and take it day by day. But unfortunately, we ended up losing. But no, it was a great experience.
Yeah, and very close game, 72-67 final. What was kind of like, if I'm not like, that's got to be the biggest stage that you've played on as far as like amount of fans or at least national presence. What was that experience like having being able to play in that game?
It was super exciting. After I made my first shot, the nerves kind of went down. But it's fun because it's a tournament, so other teams are coming in. The stadium starts to fill up, as the game goes on, and being the underdog, everybody wants to see you win. So we start getting fans from other schools. They start cheering for us whenever we score, and then, we all of a sudden like the whole gym is rooting for us. So it's just a really fun experience, being on that court, and then you got these big time announcers calling your game and all that. So it's really fun. It's a once in a lifetime experience. I was grateful to experience it.
Definitely. And then, so that ended, which kind of, I guess, wrapped up your college career as well. And then I don't remember exactly how long after, it was a few months after, you ended up playing at the G League Elite Camp. So, because I don't really know what happened in between those few months, what was kind of the process like for you between that final game and ending up playing in the Elite Camp, or I guess getting the invite for that?
I mean, really that process, it wasn't much time, maybe a month or so. But I talked to my coaches, I ended up getting an agent, and I ended up getting the invite. So it was just me working and just being ready for that opportunity. I got people that believe in me that really helped me get where I am. So with those relationships, I was able to get into that elite camp and show the scouts what I could do.
Yeah. And so I was able to watch because they showed it on the NBA app, those games. But what else was involved in that camp aside from just playing in those two scrimmage games?
So a lot went down at the hotel. As far as the first day is all like medical screening and all that stuff. But we talked to the G League Union, and they talked to us about, what's this like being in the G League, what they can do for us, and different advantages of being, in that league. And then we did like some character, not character building, some like team building, just camaraderie kind of things, hanging around with each other. And the playoffs were on at that point, so we were all watching the playoffs and stuff. And at night they were having NBA interviews, so they had a whole floor of all the NBA teams, each had their own room, and each was like an interview room. So you would get called to whoever the Knicks or whatever, and you would interview with them. So that's what would happen each night while we were down there in Chicago. So it was a lot going on outside of the games, outside of the tests and measurements.
So I guess can you like kind of paint a picture for me of what this looks like? Are you guys just like all sitting in a room and then you have all the teams kind of in front of you and you guys are just kind of sitting there hanging out until like your name gets called, almost like, I don't know, like a school kind of thing, like you guys just hanging out and then wait till your name gets called?
No, so we got a schedule as far as these interviews are
Okay.
scheduled at a certain time. So we stayed all in the same hotel. So you'd be in a room until whenever your scheduled interview is, and then you would just go up to the room, have your interview, and then that would be it. You might run into the same scout or whatever on the elevator or whatever. But it was all scheduled and panned out. It was really precise when we were over there.
So a lot more planned than I made it seem like it was. Made
Yeah,
it
it
just
was
seem
it
like it
was
was.
very structured over there. They had it all panned out.
Yeah, and then I know that there was, I guess, I don't know if this is what you meant with like the medical, like the different testing as well. You can like look up and see like measurements, and I was looking at it real quick before, like body fat percentage, standing reach, things like that. Was that all
Right.
done there as well, or was that done, I guess, around the same day or so as some of these scrimmages?
So wingspan, height, weight, all that was taken at the hotel. They had they had cleared out a ballroom and had all these measurement uh instruments and all that. So that was I want to say the first day we got there or the morning before we started playing those games. And then at the games or at the first day of the camp, we do the sprints, the vertical testing, the whatever, the shuffles and all that. And that's what you do the first day, and then the next from then it's just games.
Yeah, and then so I know the rosters were online. I don't remember, couldn't find them beforehand, but I remember seeing them at the time. How was that process? Was it just kind of like, hey, this is the team you're playing with, these are the guys you're playing with, and these are kind of your coaches, go figure things out? Or how was that process kind of like for team building, or how that went?
Yeah, so they gave us like 15 minutes in a ballroom, to just get to know each other, build a little bit of camaraderie for this little weekend. We had coaches from, I believe my coaches were from the Bulls, from the Pistons. So I had Mario Chalmers is actually one of my coaches. So it was just coaches from all around the league, and they gave us, a little offense, some defensive keys and stuff. But other than that, they just let us hoop, and they knew it was a showcase, so they just let us, go out there and showcase whatever we could do.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mario Chalmers. I remembered it was somebody. I couldn't remember which point guard, but I remember one of them was one of your coaches. What was it like interacting with him or having him kind of in your ear talking to you while you're trying to play these games?
I mean, it was cool, just being around somebody that's been in the league, that's won a ring, in the NBA. So it was just cool, trying to pick his brain and seeing how he sees things, as a coach, and it was just fun to be around that group of people, all really good players, experienced coaches. So it was just a really good learning experience for me.
Yeah, and then a number because you can see the all the or not combine elite camp invites online. Some of the guys off the top of my head that are kind of standing out. Hunter Tyson, who's now playing for the Nuggets, was there. Marquise Noel, who was really good in March Madness as well. I think he's in Toronto. Demoy Hodge and Alex Fudge are both with the Lakers. John L. Davis, I think he's actually back at FAU again this season. But anyways, a lot of talented players that were very successful in college as well. What was that like? Kind of playing with some of them alongside some of them, but also kind of knowing like, hey, this is my competition. I'm trying to make it in the G League or get kind of my name out there for the draft. What was it like interacting with, but also trying to compete against some of these guys?
I mean, it was cool, being around all these good players. I mean, and we all knew that, only a few players would get invited to the actual NBA combine. So, we were being cordial with each other, of course, but deep down, all of us wanted to, compete and take that spot from each other. So it was a really competitive environment with a lot of good players. So, you really can't beat that. It was a great experience.
Yeah. And I guess I don't remember again how long after this was, but you ended up getting a workout with the Hawks. Uh, was that directly from the G League Elite Camp and I guess your interview with them, or was that something else that happened along the way?
It was really crazy how it all went down. It really came about because my agent, they have seen being so close to Atlanta, playing in Kennesaw, they kind of had a little bit of awareness around me. But my agent's, he's great. He's really connected with a lot of teams in the NBA. So, it was one night he had called me. It was like 11 o'clock. I'm getting ready for bed. He called me, said, "Man, you got to work out tomorrow." And I was like, "Dang, like okay," out of nowhere. He calls me 30 minutes or so later. He said, "Never mind, the workout's canceled." So I'm like, "Dang, I got my hopes right. I got my hopes up to get ready for this workout." And then in the morning, it's about 6 a.m. I get another call from him. He says, "We need you to be ready in about 30 minutes. You have to work. You got another workout with the Hawks. So get ready." And I'm like, "Man, like, what am I going to work out or not?" Because I'm getting all these different
Right.
different things within one time. But I ended up going to that workout. I think it was actually Strawther
He's
from
on the Nuggets now.
Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't make the workout, so I ended up taking his spot. And that's why it was so wishy washy at the beginning. But I ended up doing really well, and I ended up making a little bit of a name for myself within that organization. And it was really good experience. It kind of helped me lead into some other things and gave me some momentum for that off season for sure.
Were you able to? I don't know. Obviously, how the workouts work, but was it just prospects in the gym and some assistant coaches, or were any like was Quinn Snyder there? Like any of the Hawks players there for the workouts as well?
So when I got to the facility, like you see some players walking around. I think I seen like Jalen Johnson working out or Fernando working out. But during our actual workout, it's about six, I want to say six of us, six players that were invited to go work out. And then all the coaches, Quinn Snyder was there, Corver, I believe Landry Fields was there
Mhm.
too. And they were just watching us. They had some coaches orchestrating the workout. So we did some warm up stuff, some ball handling, some finishing. We did some 3-on-3 competitive stuff. We did some 1-on-1 competitive stuff. And then at the end, we just did some shooting. So it was a pretty solid workout. Got to see you shoot, and see you compete with other players. So it was really good.
Yeah, and then what followed that? Like I think you said it was a good workout. How much contact did you have with the team after that, and what did that kind of lead to since that workout?
So after that, the draft was coming up pretty soon. I believe it was like a couple weeks after. So we were looking to get it picked up as far as like an undrafted pickup, but they ended up getting two guards. So we kind of just waited out, still probing the overseas market to figure out a spot. And then I ended up getting. They wanted me to come for the College Park Skyhawks tryout. So I ended up doing that, and end up doing pretty well there. And they put my name in the G League draft. We didn't get selected, unfortunately, but uh, it was good to just get them, for them to see me play. So now it's just on me, to get some film. Show what I could really do. Show that I'm not just a 7 point per game scorer, like I was my last year at Kennesaw. But kind of show them who I really am as a player. So I'm really looking forward to this next step right now.
Yeah, and obviously still seeing where that ends up with you. I know it's probably a lot of it, or I guess a lot of unknowns for you, knowing that you could be overseas. Like, is there any countries that you've thought about that or talked to that could be, hey, this is where I am for the next however long, or is it still just really unknown? You have no idea.
I've heard from my other agent, I've heard Finland or Germany and things like that. But it's so hard to put something on it until I have something
Right.
concrete. So wherever it is, as long as I'm safe and I get the opportunity to show my game, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. And backtracking to the elite camp, you mentioned the interviews. I'm assuming you had one with the Hawks, but was there any other teams that you interviewed with during that process?
So actually, I didn't interview with the Hawks. I had an
Okay.
interview. I interviewed with the Knicks actually, and they were asking a whole bunch of asking just different things about me, trying to figure out what kind of person, what kind of player, and where my mindset is. But I just had that one interview with the New York Knicks.
Hmm. Okay. And then I guess kind of wrapping up, I had some other like I guess more fun questions. Who's the toughest player that you've ever had to play against?
The toughest player. I'll probably say at Liberty, this dude named Darius McGee.
Mhm.
He he was we always had problems going against him, but he's just such a dynamic scorer, and the way they play, is tailored around him to score. Like think of the Warriors, how they play with Steph Curry with the off ball movement, with the screening, where he never stays still. He's such a great shooter. He gave us 40 twice. Not specifically me 40, but he gave the team 40 twice, and we were able to beat them in the ASUN championship. So that's probably the toughest player that I had to guard at the college level.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know, I guess, so that's toughest for college. Is there, but you also had a number of workouts or even just like playing pickup or anything like that. Is there any other like really like guys that just stand out to you that were like just incredibly tough to guard?
Um, I know in the program I had to go against Joe Johnson, and he was a problem. You just get into his spots like a vet does. Just get into his spots. Raising up right over you. But he's definitely one of the tougher pros I've had to play against. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine guarding a guy named ISO Joe in a
Right.
where
In
he's
a
just
program where you can just get busy. So it
yeah,
was
no
fun
no
though.
help, just
Right.
yeah, he's getting his buckets. That's fair. And then what's the best performance that like you feel you've had like the one game that just stands out to you, whether it's college or I guess a pro am game, anything that stands out is like that's probably either the best I've ever played or just like the most memorable performance I've had.
Most memorable performance, I would say, man, I'm not sure. I know all the Liberty games are pretty memorable. I remember I gave them 31 at Liberty, which was the most points in that building until a certain point until Darius McGee had ended up breaking that. But that was one of my favorite games. Just being there because the fans there, they're just so rowdy, and it's such a nice arena. So going there and dropping 31 the way I did was that was a fun game. That was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, dropping 31 in an opponent's building, a rivalry conference, I imagine that all those kind of factor into making that incredibly memorable. So that makes sense a lot. Spencer, that's kind of what I got for you. Man, I really appreciate you hopping on with me to kind of discuss your journey, and we'll be keeping up to date with you to try and figure out what happens next and maybe have you back on in the future, man.
Yes, sir, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. And yeah, so that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, episode 36 of the Tank Me Later podcast. Make sure we'll keep you guys up to date with Spencer, whatever, when he ends up figuring out where he's going to be playing at next season. We'll let you guys know so you guys can stick up to date with that. And hopefully we can get some more players on to kind of give that other perspective. I think that'd be a lot of fun as opposed to just kind of going through fantasy basketball stuff. As fun as that is, just talking hoops is what we're here for. But that's going to do it for this episode. You can follow at FBI Basketball on Twitter. Like, rate, review, whatever you got to do with that, all that fun stuff. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.